Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Double Shot of Steelers. It's the live video that we do every weekday on our YouTube channel, as well as on DK Pittsburgh Sports, of course, on the app and on the website. I just came back from the Steelers OTAs on the South Side, had a bunch of interesting conversations, saw some interesting things, and I'm here to share some of that with you. Chris Halleck will be joining me as well. He's going to be a little bit delayed today. I live downtown, so I'm right across the river from the Steelers facility. He's all the way out in Westmoreland County, so it takes him a little while longer to get home, but he said that he'll be around 15 minutes or so, something like that. I spoke with one individual that I'd really been hoping to speak with in particular in these OTAs, and that is Keanu Benton. And I really wanted, more than anything else, for Keanu to answer one question. However, one thing that you learn about the media business and interviewing people is that not everybody's feeling exactly the same way day after day after day after day. Keanu was in a pretty spirited mood today, and you could see, you're about to see this on the video, and at the same time he didn't want anything to do with any answer that was going to be longer than about 6-7 words. Well, as you can see, as you'll be able to see here, I can play that game too. So we went at it back and forth, rapid fire, for about a minute. The thing that I encourage you to listen to closely is when I ask him about his position, because that was the gold that I was mining for. What is his position? What does he consider to be his position? And well, here goes. Here's our entire exchange, a minute long. Keanu Benton, Pittsburgh Steelers. How you feeling out here?
I feel great, man. It's a wonderful day out here in Pittsburgh, PA.
I love when you start like that. Tell me about your approach going into this season.
I just want to come out and give my all. I feel like I got a lot left on that table, and we got to come show the world.
Wait, what's that mean? A lot left on the table. Talk to me.
Just a lot left. There's a lot I know, a lot more that I know I can do.
When somebody says, what is he, nose tackle? What is he, this or that? What are you?
A playmaker. I'm a D lineman. I can play all over the D line.
When you see the D line that you added, how much stronger can that make you guys?
What's that?
When you see all the D linemen that you added.
Oh, yeah. I feel like just adding that depth help keep us fresh, especially in the long run. It's an 18-week season, long season. And you're going to need more than just the starting guys to do that.
All right. There's actually a lot to unpack from those 47 seconds, but I'm going to start with this. You see how he looks? Like, this doesn't require him stepping on a scale or something, okay? He is like this. He's a lot thinner. Now, he is still defensive line size. I'm not, getting into anything, that would suggest he would be moving to some other crazy position, okay? But when you look at him, do you think nose tackle? And not just because you grew up with Big Snack and Casey Hampton. Do you think nose tackle? No. When you watch him play, do you think nose tackle? No, not at all. And I don't mean that even in a critical way. If you think about Keanu's skill set and you think about the things that he can do, you don't think to yourself, oh, here's someone who's going to take up a couple of blockers to free up the linebackers to go make tackles. Can he do that? Is he capable? Yeah. But not what you think of. What you think of is exactly the answer that he gave me. He could have said that any number of ways. He could have said, well, I'm an interior defensive lineman. I'm this, I'm that. I'm at this spot. I'm at this gap. He didn't. He said, I'm a playmaker. Now, when he and I were done, actually, this was a good bit later, I ran into his positional coach. And I ran past the positional coach this assessment of what his position is. And what I ended up coming away with from this positional coach was that Well, yeah, that's actually what he is. He's out there to do playing, to make plays, to play with things. This, of course, is Carl Dunbar. And Coach Dunbar had a big smile on his face as he spoke. And it's very similar, as I reminded the coach, to what he said back around the time the Steelers drafted both Derek Harmon and Y.A. Black. Because you are adding bodies into the mix. Now, you heard what Keanu said to me when I brought those guys up. He said, well, it's more rotation. It's more guys to spell you. This is what I've been getting at all along. And this unusual little interview probably shed as much light on this subject as anything else that I was going to get. What these guys are looking at more than anything is to have two of everything. So if Cam's out there with, I don't know, Harmon, Keanu's out there with Black, or somebody else is in the mix. There are other defensive linemen in this mix, and nobody's handing Black in particular a 5th-round pick, a starting job. Those are going to have to be earned. So it's interesting to me that the nose tackle position, which has never really been phased out by the Steelers, just like fullback has never been formally, like they didn't make a declaration that said, we're done with the fullback position. We're done with the nose tackle position. What they want, I believe, and we're not going to know this really with any level of certainty until we get to Latrobe, is two dynamic guys who can make things happen, both with run defense and applying pressure to the quarterback. And then another two guys to come out there and spell them, but maybe do it continuously. It doesn't even have to be being out there for a full series. It's what Jerry says. It's rotation and keep them fresh. It's what you just heard from Keanu. I feel like there's a lot of pluses that can come from that, but I'd feel a whole lot better about that once we get to see Harmon and Black out there, once we get to see whatever this new Benton is. And I don't know how else to describe him except that you just saw him. You saw his face. What is he up to? What are they up to? You saw 47 seconds of deep dive investigative reporting there on my part, and that's going to have to do for now. When we come back, I will be joined by Chris Halleck.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
What's up, Chris Halleck?
Hey, how are you?
You know why I'm cool and comfortable here? Because I have a little 3-minute drive across the bridge here to get back downtown from the south side. Chris has to go a little bit further.
A little bit, but traffic was not as bad as it initially was supposed to be. So right here on time for the segment.
I shared an interview in the opening segment that I did today with Keanu Benton. Told you about it while we were there today.
Yeah.
Out in the grass. And he described him when I asked, what are you, a nose tackle? What are you? And he came back with, I'm a playmaker. Ooh. And I went back to Coach Dunbar, sitting on the bench, kind of just taking in the scene as he tends to do. And I said, your nose tackle says he's a playmaker. He says that's his position. And then Coach just kind of shakes his head and goes, yep. So I think that's what we're looking at here, Chris. I think we're looking at, first of all, it's not the worst kept secret in the world is that the Steelers' base defense is 2 down linemen, not 3. You can call it the 3-4 defense all you want.
Yeah.
To me, your base defense is the one that you're in the most often. And I believe that count is at like 60%. 2 down linemen?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, they are in there. I mean, when you combine their nickel and dime packages, it's the same thing. It's 2 interior defensive tackles. It's 2 edge rushers. Those 4 are up on the line of scrimmage. Then depending on if you're in nickel or dime, depends on how many linebackers and defensive backs you have. But yes, when we're talking about the defensive front, you're talking about in 2 interior defensive tackles, which means you don't have a nose tackle. So that means Keanu Benton is first crack at playing next to Cam Hayward. And it's a big time role. I mean, this is his first real crack with no competition. Not saying that I'm talking about veteran competition, because he has Derek Harmon pounding on the door. You know, Derek Harmon's a first round pick, and he's going to come in and try to get as much playing time as possible. I think those are your 3 whenever you are in a base 3-4 defense, when you do have a nose tackle and you have your 2 traditional defensive ends with your 2 edge rushers outside of those guys. But yeah, Keanu's got a heck of an opportunity on his, knocking, on the door right there. And I'd like to hear an answer like that from him.
I look at these guys right now, and I think to myself that what they really want out of all this, Chris, is they want 4 guys.
Yeah.
And they want 4 guys, not necessarily to be split evenly. Okay. They can say all they want about cutting Cam Hayward's snaps. I'm sorry, man. You get out there and you're protecting a 5-point lead in the 4th quarter. You're not saying, hey, 97, come on over here and just take a blow. It's not going to happen. Okay. So I still think that no matter what you do here from a balance perspective, you're going to end up with Cam out there for 50 or 60 snaps. I'm sorry. I really believe that.
Well, I think when you're when they talk about limiting Cam's and even TJ snaps, I do think you're talking about probably in earlier stages of the game, or at least in like 1st and 3rd quarter, where you're kind of getting a feel for. Obviously, at first you're getting a feel for how the team is coming out to attack your defense, and then once you come out of halftime and you see what adjustments they've made. But when crunch time comes in the 2nd quarter, like late in the 2nd quarter, and especially in the 4th quarter, that's when they really want to be able to have Hayward and TJ and all those guys out there for as many snaps as possible. And that's where the rotation comes into play. How often can you sub out Cam Hayward and TJ on a random 2nd and 8 in the 1st quarter or in the 3rd quarter, so that when the 4th quarter comes around, you can keep putting TJ and Cam out there.
What is Benton's, I don't want to say, I was about to say major malfunction or fatal flaws, both of which sound excessively dramatic. He's a really good football player.
Yeah.
But there's a gap between the way everybody on the inside was speaking about Benton as a rookie and the way things appear to be right now. Now, the easy thing to do, and I've done this, is to look at his base statistics and say, okay, and clearly he wasn't making the impact that you wanted. He wasn't making the splash that you wanted. And almost nobody on that side of the football was anywhere near as effective as you would want against the run. And that includes him. But what do they want him to be, Chris? And never forget the position designation and forget him saying playmaker, okay, because that wasn't happening. Okay, so what's his model? What is it that you're looking for? Somebody here earlier put, that he wants to be, that they want him to be Javon Hargrave. He's not Javon Hargrave.
No.
Javon's got, pardon my getting real literal here on you and everything, but Javon's got the nose tackle butt. Okay, you got to work to move Javon. He has a central, what's I'm looking for? He has centrifugal force there below the belt. Okay, he's not going to be moved very easily. Where is Keanu in this?
So Chris B71 actually brings up a good point here. I'm sure the scheme has a lot to do with it. Now, that is true. What the Steelers want to do more than anything is have their edge rushers eat. That's what they want. And the more that the interior defensive lineman can do to eat up blockers and to force guys to block them means that there's less guys to block the edge rushers, because those are the guys that have the best chance of getting back to the quarterback. So how do you do that? Well, especially in, obviously we're talking about pass rush, because Keanu Benton, while he has some very intriguing skills as a pass rusher, he needs to work on his finishing. When he wins his initial, when he wins his initial rush, how can he get from that point to getting to the quarterback? Because right now it's not getting there quickly enough. Does that mean he needs to maybe trim down, like we've talked about, getting faster? I think that's part of it. And then when you talk about run defense, it's just about being able to eat up double teams. When those two defensive tackles can eat up double teams, can force offensive linemen to, hey, we have to block this guy or he's going to blow the play up. And you see that from Cam Hayward all the time.
Yes. And that's where I want to steer the Keanu Benton conversation to.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta really watch it with the Stephon Tuitt comparisons, or just because it's not fair. Okay. Steph never should have been a second round pick.
Right.
Okay, I mean, he had an injury coming out of college. Steph was special. Okay.
Yeah.
That said, part of what made Steph and Cam such a dynamic duo in their time together was that you had Cam can wreck things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cam can walk into a room and break all the china, but Cam is also a technician.
Mm-hmm.
Cam also has a methodology to what he was doing. Steph was capable of both, but Steph was more of the bull in the china shop. I like to refer to players who are principally disruptors as young Bud Dupree. Okay.
Yeah.
Bud did stuff that was never, ever, ever going to show up, even in a made up statistic. Okay. Like Bud Dupree win rate. for Pro Football Focus. What was the Bud Dupree win rate? The Bud Dupree win rate was that he would create so much Tasmanian devil-like mayhem swirling through the other team's backfield that everyone else, notably number 90 at the other bookend, would go, oh, this is cool. I like playing with this guy. They're all looking at him. They think he's nuts. Actually, he is nuts. When I think of Benton and the praise that he was getting, Chris, as a rookie, and the ceiling that everybody seemed to be setting for him, it was based mostly on that. He was wrecking things. He was doing things in the middle that were really disrupting for the other guys. And that if that's playmaking, so be it. Then I don't mind his lack of stats.
Yeah, and some of the best plays that Cam Hayward makes don't even show up in the box score. They don't show up on the stat sheet. There were times all throughout last season when teams would be trying to run some sort of counter and they're pulling two different guys from the opposite side, from the other side of the formation to pull for the counter run, and Hayward would just blow them both up. And that opens up so many other things. That opens up the linebackers to be free. It opens everything up. And that's what you want to see from guys like from Benton and from Harmon and these guys. How do they become more of just an absolute wrecking ball in the middle of the defense? It doesn't necessarily have to result in tackles and TFLs and sacks. And there have been times, and it's shown up on tape, where Keanu Benton has done that. I remember one run specifically against the Bills in the playoff game during his rookie season, in which you saw him anchor in a double team, and you could tell the one blocker wanted to get off, and he could not get off to get to the second level. That frees up the linebacker to go make a play. But Benton didn't even let it get to that, because then he actually got off the double team and made the tackle. Like, he's capable of it. It's how do you find a way to consistently do it? Is it a motor issue? Is it a strength issue? Is it an endurance issue? Is it a little bit of everything? I think that's what we kind of have to figure out, because he's flashed it on tape. It's how does he put it together in a consistent way?
It's a short list that I've got of players who are just so pivotal. And I'm using that term in the dictionary sense, meaning you can pivot in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean important. It means you can pivot to the good, you can pivot to the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And where Keanu is concerned, if he is what everyone hoped he'd be as a rookie, and if he can overcome whatever it was from last year that he'd have to overcome, including, can't rule this out, that he would have been misused, miscast, applied as a nose tackle, challenged to be that type of player instead of just shedding his blocks. So you don't have to hold them, go shed them. There's no commonality, Chris, in those two roles.
Yeah.
Okay, between traditional nose tackle and what the stuff that everybody just heard Keanu talking about just now.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. And yet you'll never hear, and you've never heard the Steelers say we no longer have a nose tackle. You'll hear that it's changed, that it's morphed, that it's less relevant, and you'll hear that about the fullback position. Then you know what? When they leave Latrobe, let's presume that Connor Hayward makes the team. One of his many positional designations is going to be FB. It's going to be on there.
Yeah.
Even though they won't use him as a fullback for a single snap in the 2025 season. Kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, no, he'll probably get like ones because every now and then they'll move him in motion. He'll be the H back in the backfield, but yeah, most of the time, he's another tight end, and that's why they keep 4 of them because he can be that guy that can move around and play, in the traditional tight end spot or play H back or anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely not. The Steelers don't have a full-time fullback. They just don't.
Nor do they want one.
I think
they chased a guy from the Niners. Remember last summer?
Yeah, no, it was this offseason.
Offseason.
Yeah, when Usyk became available, they hosted him for a visit, and it just he decided to go back to the 49ers for less money. Apparently, I think if they had access to a really good fullback, Arthur Smith would absolutely find a way to use him. But I think they only have they're not going to just bring on some guy to play fullback and have it be some no name. And I think it's going to have to be a guy who's got some pedigree.
We're taking your questions here, and always favoring those of you who are members as you come in. The way to become a member is to go to dkps.net/join. You just type that up into the URL here. We're happy to go after you here. Greg Haas, a certain I was going to say friend of the family of the family of our family here at DK Pittsburgh Sports, throws in a $12 gift. It says $1 for every Tommy Pham extra base hit plus RBIs. Yeah, Pham has only 4 extra base hits all season in 150 plate appearances. I have not counted his RBI in a while, but I'm going to guess that's because I haven't had to update the total in a while. How is that guy still here? Charles comes in with 10 gift memberships. I believe we had Stella Fierce come in earlier. We did with 10 of these as well. And Levi Smith came in with 20. So you got them available to you. Come on in and try out what we have. We're going to have a members only show later in the week. Chris and I. News to Chris. Look at Chris going, well, we are.
Sounds good. They're always fun. If I'm recording in my basement, I can't promise that Omar Khan's going to show up in the background this time.
Balo appreciates the Tommy Pham shade. You need to make it over to some of our Pirates shows, dude. They're pretty much Tommy. I was about to say Tommy Sham fade.
Oh.
No, that wasn't intentional. That would have been pretty petty if it was intentional. Not that I'm above that sort of thing here. Robert Sham is excited that Nick Gonzalez is back for the game tonight. Dude, Paul Skeens is pitching. That should be enough for everybody here. Teresa wants to know, are the Steelers going to involve Mount Washington more in the passing game than they have previously? Here's how this works, Teresa. Every offseason, we can talk about tight ends and how they're going to get more involved. And then the Steelers can bring in an offensive coordinator who is so known for his passion for not 2 tight ends, but 3 tight ends. If it was up to Arthur Smith, he could have 7 tight ends out there. There would just be somebody snapping the ball to the quarterback and a series of tight ends surrounding them. But then the games start. And what you're going to get, I believe, is a reasonably higher total for Pat Freiermuth. And you're going to see pretty much the same out of Darnell, and you are going to see something out of Donald Parham. Okay?
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know who that is, Parham's actually taller than any of them. He's 6'8". Now, he's not,
No.
He's not blotting out the sun like Mount Washington is.
Yeah.
But he's a tall target. He presents an easy target for a quarterback to find, and he's going to see the football much in the same way. Who was it last year, Chris? That we would say, what's he doing getting the ball?
Michael Pruitt.
Oh, my goodness. Michael Pruitt. That's right.
Michael Pruitt.
And every time we look at each other and we go, Michael Pruitt, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
But that's art.
Yeah.
He wants that third tight end involved. He wants that third tight end as a real threat. And he wants it to be a real option for his quarterback, to be more specific.
Yeah, for sure. And he needs it to be a guy that can both block and be a receiver. That's kind of what Pruitt did. Now, Parham, I do think he's more on the receiving side of things. Not saying he can't block. Obviously, if you're tight end, you have to be able to block even just a little bit. But I would say Parham is more of a threat as a receiver. And again, when you're 6'8", 6'9", that's a heck of a target, especially in the red zone. So, but yeah, he wants to be able to have a rotation, not necessarily always have 3 tight ends on the field, but whenever you are in 12 personnel with, 2 tight ends, maybe, you're giving Pat Freiermuth a rest, or maybe you're in a more of a passing situation. And so you want to have Freiermuth and Parham. But when it comes to Darnell Washington specifically, I still think he's going to be the de facto number 2 tight end. He's a really good blocker to have, but he can also have the occasional. Honestly, you don't want to throw to him too often, because some of the most back-breaking catches he made were whenever he was almost completely out of sight, out of mind, and then all of a sudden he's just left completely alone in the middle of the field.
Right.
Like, remember, there were a couple times that happened last season where Russell Wilson was just go ball, go ball, go ball. And then all of a sudden he drops back and the Red Sea parts for Darnell Washington smack dab in the middle of the field, so much so that even Russell Wilson could see it, and he threw and hit him in the middle of the field. And so sometimes that also happens, so I don't think it necessarily has to be, he's got to have 50, 60 targets this season. He can still be just as dangerous with a less is more approach.
Mike Jones, a member, comes at us while sitting on top of his caps lock and says, I don't want us to be a team to try to be a tush-push copycat, but I honestly would love to see the Steelers make the jumbo offense something similar in nature. Look, if the rule is there, I mean, you can't just wish it away. They voted against it. They didn't win out. But, Chris, what would that look like in this offense? The tush-push, generally speaking, is something that the quarterback executes, meaning with the ball in his hand.
Have to be.
But, the Ravens have done it with Mark Andrews.
Yep.
The Steelers could do it with Mount Washington. They could do it with Freiermuth. Mason Rudolph, I mean, we have no idea how the quarterback thing's going to go, but Mason Rudolph's he's been okay with sneaks.
Yep.
Remember, that was one thing, by the way, in Kenny Pickett's rookie year.
Oh, he was great at them.
Oh,
he was phenomenal. It was almost as automatic as the tush push.
It was automatic. There was just nothing anybody could do to stop that. And yet the funny thing is we're looking from afar from the press box, but we can't find him.
That's probably the reason why he worked so well, because he was on the smaller side for a quarterback specifically. He could just sneak in the A gap and just get there. That was interesting.
He'd get up and just go like this, and you're like, where did he come from?
Yeah,
but it was really effective. So you can look 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, whether it's tush push or not. They have to get better. Sorry, there's no excuses.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that. Teresa's asking Mike Jones to get off of that caps lock. It's hurting her ears.
I will say I am very intrigued by the idea of Darnell Washington being the one to execute the tush push.
Well,
Good luck
yeah,
stopping that if he goes
that
forward.
sounds good. That all sounds well and good given his leverage and everything else that he had. But does he know how to do that? That's not. You don't just be big and exist.
Oh yeah.
In that role, I mean, he has to know how to plant his legs. He has to know how to get the drive. That's something that I think you could see him work with Jaylen Warren on, work with Caleb Johnson on, and say, hey, how do you guys do this in this situation? How do you protect the football? I mean, you just talk about your worst case scenario on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1.
Actually, do you know who would have been a really, really great candidate? He's not on the team anymore. Zach Gentry. Not only because of his size, but he was a former quarterback.
Perfect.
And so he could take a snap from under center. Like he would have experience at that. That would have been perfect. They need to take advantage of the rule. I'll just say that. I don't like the rule. I hate the rule. It's not football, but as long as it's legal, my God, take advantage of it.
Jay Mood says the tush push is such a lame name for a lame play. It's boring. You know what? I guarantee you that at least 90% of the reason everybody talks about the thing is because of the awesome name. Okay. All kinds of football plays come and go and never get a name, and nobody ever brings up, oh yeah, what about that type of play? Why? Yeah. Because nobody ever gave it a great tush push name. Like that. Gene says, I'd like to see Washington and Black launch Calvin Austin over the line for a couple of yards. Might want to check with Cal on that one.
You might want to check with Cal
first. Wow.
That's actually really funny.
Well, there's nothing against that as a rule. I mean, that was the for those of us who go back a little bit with the Steelers, this is about 30 years ago, but what was known as the unstoppable play, or the Steelers offense, and that was Kordell Stewart at the line of scrimmage. Kordell, not a big dude, and Kordell wasn't tush pushing anybody. What Kordell would do is he'd go aerial, and it really was unstoppable, Chris. There was nothing the other guys could do, because no matter how much they would stack up or do this, he could still go. Incredible athlete. Everything about Kordell is so before his time. It's not even funny.
It really is.
Kordell in the year 2025 would be treated like gold instead of, let's make him a wide receiver.
Nope.
Like everybody around here did at the time.
Yep. No, I would absolutely. I love, by the way, the names that are going through in the chat, like the different football names. I'm surprised nobody's named annexation of Puerto Rico just yet. That really is my favorite
TV
name.
says Mean Joe Green came out with a stunt 4-3 and wreaked havoc, and then eventually it got diluted. I don't know if there's some way to actually stop the tush push, though. Did the Eagles bat 1,000 on it?
Pretty dang close. Really? I don't know. I mean, it's. I can't think of a time they didn't succeed doing it. Honestly,
what
it's
about
nearly automatic?
The spirit or the continuity of football. What is it that would offend people? Because I don't buy this whole it's dangerous for the players or whatever. It's
pushing a ball carrier. Sometimes it's already hard enough to tackle the ball carrier. Now other offensive teammates are able to help push him forward or move him forward. Are the defensive players now also allowed to tackle those guys? Well, no, they can't. You can't tackle anybody other than the ball carrier. So it's just, I am very, very much an offensive minded person. I cannot stand the play. I hate it.
That's because it doesn't involve any imagination. You're into all that stuff.
Well, that's part of it too. I mean, at the end of the day, the NFL is an entertainment business, and it is the least entertaining play whatsoever. Especially when you get to the point where was the game in the playoffs between the Eagles and Commanders, where the Commanders kept jumping offside over and over and over again.
They were trying anything to stop it. Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's like, let's just get this over with. Come on, it's terrible.
Dwight Jefferson says, and Kordell could punt. It's not. Yep. That's not enough to say he can punt, because people think that, they hear that, and they think of Ben and his pooch punts. Ben could do the pooch.
Yeah.
Listen to some of the terminology we're using today. Ben could do the pooch, but it was an effective pooch. Like, Ben would go about 15, 20 yards, and he'd place the thing and whatever else, and he'd hole you up at your, inside your 10-yard line somewhere. Kordell could boom the living crap out of it. Okay, and he was doing it in college too.
Mm-hmm.
He did. Where did he go? Colorado? Sound right?
Yeah, Colorado.
Okay. He could do anything. Just Kordell was just born in the wrong time. That's all.
He really was. Kordell was made for 2010s, 2020 football.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really
Tico Robinson wants to know if Mason Rudolph looks like a young Arthur Smith with his mustache. He does not.
No, he looks like Freddie Mercury. That's what I got. I got Freddie Mercury.
Well, wow, Freddie Mercury.
I mean, with the longer hair that he's got going and the mustache, and I don't know. I got Freddie Mercury vibes looking at Mason with the mustache.
Well, to avoid complications, we're going to move on to the next subject. Yeah, that's what CJ is going for too. Is Freddie 2.0 here? I can tell you that Mason can't sing like Freddie.
Well, very few can sing like Freddie.
No, but I don't even think Mason could pull off a good Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that night. Mason does not look like Gardner Minshew either. Now, Gardner Minshew has more of an Arthur Smith look to him than anything else here. Mason does not look like Mark Gastineau. Now we're getting back into old New Jersey players. Live Aid Mason is you have to for Live Aid Freddie Mercury. You got to go out and do the acapella thing that he does when he gets the crowd singing along.
Now somebody's got to convince Mason Rudolph to dress up as Live Aid Freddie Mercury for Player Report Day to train.
Well, Live Aid Freddie Mercury just means coming out with no shirt on.
Well, I mean, it's the white
costume.
It's the white beater, the tight jeans.
Oh, wife beater, says the wife over here. She says, "Oh yeah, it's the wife beater."
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, no, that's what he's got to dress up as now for Player Report Day. You know what? Like when Vince Williams came as Stone Cold Steve Austin one year.
Oh, he did too.
Yeah.
He did too. Carol Toth, who's a big Mason fan, says that she has him with Tom Selleck, which doesn't surprise me. No. Okay, Tom Selleck did have more of the Freddie Mercury, like it was a real thick mustache.
Oh yeah,
Mason's mustache. Listen, I don't care if he's watching this. It's sad, man. It's like, what is that thing? It's like going for a swim in either direction. You know.
There are some people that can do the mustache. I can't because my mustache is it's lighter than the rest of my beard. It's weird.
Micah makes sure that we stop enjoying ourselves here and says, I think this team is more prepared to tank than most are letting on. Why do we as a society apply this term so incorrectly, never mind recklessly? Let me tell you what tanking is in sports. Okay. You see this bobblehead? Okay. This is the result of tanking.
Yeah.
The Penguins in 1984 quite literally were throwing games so that they could draft this guy because there was not a draft lottery in the NHL back then. It was the most righteous and holy tanking of all time because all they ended up with was the greatest athlete in our city's history and the greatest hockey player who ever lived. That's tanking. Having a rough season is not tanking. Having a rough season intentionally is tanking.
Yeah.
So let's at least get the terminology correct here. Chris, there are people, Micah's not alone in this.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Okay, there are people who think this season is just shot to hell, that there's just no chance.
There's no chance. But the thing is that we were saying the same thing last year. You know, although not we, but like there were a lot of people saying the same thing last year. The Steelers were projected to finish last in their division last year by a lot of people. And they still went 10-7. Despite having a completely horrific all-time fall off a cliff ending to the season, but they still won 10 football games. This is still a good football team. I don't understand why people think that, like, Because they had an epic failure last year at the end of the season. Doesn't mean that they weren't a 10-3 football team prior to that. Does not matter who you're playing. If you go 10-3 in the NFL, you're a good football team. I don't care what your situation is.
Tanking is intentional. The definition of tanking in sports is that it's intentional. There aren't other interpretations of this term. The Chicago Black Sox of shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
They were tanking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The night that I watched, going back to 1984, the Penguins and the New Jersey Devils were the two worst teams in the league, and they had to play each other. Okay. You've never seen a more hideous sporting event than this in your life. And the Pittsburgh crowd, and I was there, was actively, vocally cheering on the Devils.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those of you who were there, feel free to jump in because you know what I'm talking about. There was a Mario watch on, and it was real. Mm-hmm. And everyone knew the difference between 1 and 2 in that draft. And by the way, if you remember who 2 was in that draft, feel free to jump into the comments and share the name. I think we'll get some. He was a good player and everything, but my goodness.
Yeah.
Robert has too much pride on this team to tank. It's not even that, Robert. Tank for what? Yeah, this is this crazy idea. You know, remember the suck for luck that the Colts were talking about and everything else. Okay, they didn't need to tank. They didn't need to. They were just bad. What did the Colts do? Didn't they win 1 game that year? Was it 1 or 2? The year they got Andrew Luck?
I don't remember, but yeah, they were bad.
It's so spectacularly rare that it should actually never come up in sports conversation, especially now that there are draft lotteries. Nothing's guaranteed.
Well, and even in the NFL, like the NFL does not have a draft lottery, and I don't think they ever will.
Why is that?
Well, first off, the NFL draft is the best draft of all, like, just the event itself, but even then, it's just the NFL has enough parity where they don't need to change anything up in order to. I don't know. The NFL has struck a balance where teams can turn themselves around in 1 year. They don't have to. How often do you have to worry about teams consistently tanking year in, year out? It just doesn't happen. I think that's why that's exactly why Major League Baseball instituted a lottery, was it was an anti-tanking measure to get teams from stopping tanking.
Well, yeah, like these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Across the river. I mean, but the way that you tank, by the way, people are getting into players and stuff, and we're talking about the Black Sox now. That's not how the actual tanking, which I'm going to repeat, is so rare that we shouldn't be wasting any time on it. Is that players aren't the ones that do this, okay?
Yeah.
Some of the great stories I'm going to keep repeating from 1984 is that Eddie Johnston, who's still with us and still in great health and everything in his mid-80s. EJ was the general manager at the time. EJ knew what was up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, EJ knew what was at hand here. As he has said himself many times since then, if we didn't get 66, as he put it, Civic Arena would have been a parking lot. And the Penguins would have been long gone. We wouldn't have had the NHL in Pittsburgh. And imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah.
Never mind Mario and everything else that he's meant, and then Sidney Crosby and everything else that followed.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how tanking works. EJ went up to Mount Washington, not Darnell, Washington, actual Mount Washington. Okay. That thing over there. And he knew that there was a watering hole that a few of his better players would go hang out. And that they were out there after curfew. He went up there one night, conveniently busted them all, had 3 of them sent down to the minor leagues as punishment. This would never happen. Why did he do that? Because they were killing him by winning games. They had a goaltender up named Vincent Tremblay in the final month of the season who couldn't stop a beach ball. While their main guy was in the minor leagues because he was past curfew drinking. They knew exactly what they were doing. But this again is so crazy rare that it's not even a thing. It just really isn't.
Mike Jones brings up the Browns. The Browns don't intentionally tank. They just suck.
Stink. There's a difference. Don't give them that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, they just suck. They have
You
made
know,
bad decision after bad decision.
I do think, though, I'll respectfully disagree that the NFL would never come up with a draft lottery, because I think one of the things that could happen someday is that you'll see another Joe Burrow type come out. That to me is when all bets are off.
Right.
You see someone like Burrow who just has everything. Okay. And of course, he had the weapons at LSU and everything else. I mean, he wasn't exactly bankrupt there, but you still knew.
Yeah, that LSU team was stupid. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Patrick Queen.
You still knew.
Yeah.
What Burrow could do. All right. So you get to the end of the season and two teams are, 1-6, 1-15 going into the last week. You're going to set up a really circumstance for that final week.
Yeah, but
that's when I think you could see the NFL say, all right, listen, this isn't going to work.
But I don't think but we're still talking about something that will happen every now and then when a certain quarterback comes out every 10 to 15 years or however often that happens, and as long as you don't see the same 5-6 teams consistently just intentionally sucking just so that they can consistently pick at the top of the draft, you don't see that that often. I mean, shoot, the Titans 5 years ago were playing in the AFC Championship against the Chiefs, and now they're picking number 1 in the draft, and I bet in 5 years they're still not picking number 1 in the draft. It's just the league. I mean, we saw the Texans go from being a terrible football team to making a coaching change and a GM change. And then literally in the span of 1 year, because they drafted a quarterback in the top 5, they're now like perennial favorites to win the AFC South.
They kicked everybody's rear end with that pick too in that draft. That's how that works. Phil says, how about the Jets? No chance, Phil. Too much pride in Winnipeg. They'd never let them do that up there.
I knew that was coming.
Alan Collins says, Kirk Muller is the correct name. He misspelled his name, but it was Kirk Muller. He played for the Devils for many years. Nice career. Great guy. Always knew and understood he was going to be the number 2 guy behind Lemieux. Was a complete class act about it. I have nothing negative to say about Kirk Muller. He was in a no-win situation. I mean, the gap between 1 and 2 was insane.
Who was number 2 the year Crosby was drafted? Do you remember?
Sid 2. You know what? I actually don't. Let me see that.
2005. I thought that 2005 class was good too.
It was a great class overall. Here's 2005 NHL entry draft. Oh, Bobby Ryan, who had unfortunately the battle with alcoholism and everything else. Wait, that was Central Scouting. That's not. Oh yeah, Bobby Ryan was taken second by the Ducks.
Yeah.
Then Jack Johnson, then Benoit Pouliot, and then the great Carey Price in goal at number 5. By the way, best
Letang
ever,
was 3rd round pick in that.
Best ever 1-2 spacing in NHL history. And this will probably be true forever. How about Alexander Ovechkin at 1? And Evgeny Malkin at 2.
Yeah. You're talking about.
We will never see a 1-2 like that ever again.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Steeler South says the Jets also spend money as well. Well, that's how they became the best team in the league this year in the regular season. Anyway, they struggled in goal in the playoffs, and they didn't have things go their way. Obviously, some tragedy and some injuries, but Winnipeg will be back. Bobby Ryan, says Raymond here. He came right in with Bobby Ryan just like that. That wasn't an act.
Good stuff.
Good for him on that one here. Oh, here's a good one. This one's for you, Chris, even though it's addressed to me. Just how healthy is Cole Holcomb? Chris was in on Holcomb while I was talking to Keanu Benton.
Yeah, I mean, everything sounds and looks normal with Cole Holcomb. Now, again, this is OTAs. This is primarily individual drills, 7-on-7. There's no live contact yet. I will be a lot better equipped to answer that question once we get to the first day in full pads in Latrobe and see Cole Holcomb taking part consistently in backs on backers and 11-on-11 and 7 shots and and like if he's going full head of steam in that setting, I think he's okay, because if there's any limitations, he's not participating in that kind of stuff. So we'll see still on that, but so far so good when it comes to participation level, the way he looks, so on and so forth.
Mario has the best Mason Rudolph lookalike yet. That's young Tony Robbins. That's actually a perfect call. There's a lot, including the chin and the forehead, everything. Yeah, there's a lot of Tony Robbins there. I could see that one completely. Cole Holcomb, he's going to have to show a lot.
Yeah, he will
in terms of health. But you know what? I'll say this right now: that guy could have called it a day.
He could have.
He
Especially
didn't have
with that
to do
gruesome
this.
of an injury. Yeah.
He could have just put himself back into a position where he could just be a normal human again and just walk and, play games with his kids and all that other stuff. To battle for more than a full calendar year, okay, to put yourself into NFL starters shape. The answer here, Tobacco Salad, is at one solid LB room. Was he wearing a brace? He hasn't been wearing anything, Chris. I haven't seen anything. Have you?
No, he has a sleeve over that leg, but a lot of guys.
But you can see there's nothing under it.
No. There's no brace or anything. Not any kind of brace you would see like Ben Roethlisberger wearing whenever he was nursing a knee injury, or any of the offensive linemen when they're needing some extra support. Nothing like that.
Chris says, what was his injury? No one ever stated it, dude.
He won't say it.
I mean, it was catastrophic. It was just the destruction of a human knee.
Yeah.
It went the direction it's not supposed to go.
Yeah. I mean, you can. Yeah. There's been some speculation from, other reports on what it was. And the reason why I call it speculation is Cole literally told me, nobody's guessed it right yet. I mean, he told me that last year, because I talked with him, consistently. Every time he was in the locker room, I'm like, hey, how's rehab going? Everything. And he would always give me the same answer. And he said it today, chopping wood. That's the answer he gave me every time. And then we chit chat. And a couple times I tried, it's like, so what exactly happened? He goes, not saying it, but he did say, yeah, nobody's gotten it right yet.
Yeah, Matthew McKinney says here, I love the way Matthew puts it here. He says he wants to go out on his own terms. One thing that you don't have to wonder about Holcomb, even from the half season that he was able to play for the Steelers, is dude can really play. And a lot of his game, if you'll recall, is coverage. He was their best coverage guy among linebackers by a mile. Our Jose Negron, our baseball/football guy, comes in and says, Chris told me not to watch the clip of it. I need to listen to Chris more.
Yeah. I told him to not do it. Jose, you needed to listen to me, and you did not.
Jose, by the way, is covering the Pirates game tonight over there for us. I'll be over a little bit later as well because I just can't get enough.
Are they now 500 under Don Kelly now?
No,
close to it.
I think 10-12, something like that. But they've been in a lot of tight games, like those ones in San Diego. They're playing better ball.
They are.
Okay, and they still need to fire the GM, and you can only go so far in motivating.
Oh yeah.
Crappy roster.
Right.
You'll get a little bit more out of them, but you're not going to get results.
Yeah.
We'll be back, guys, in a moment here to take care of some business on Double Shot of Steelers. So, yeah, we're going to take care of some stuff here, and the boss is going to put up there it is. Memberships are at 2,476. So we're 524 away. I feel like I'm obligated to share this in case we have new viewers whenever this happens. When they go down, it's because gifts expire. Gifts are welcome. They bring people in and everything else, but ultimately you got to get your own. That's at dkps.net/donate. join. Zach Hall says with a $5 contribution, putting good juju in the universe for Paul Skeens to get a no-hitter tonight and the Penguins to sign Mitch Love as their head coach. I'm totally in favor of the Mitch Love thing. I am okay with Skeens no-hitting the Astros, who are not a good hitting team. Juju, what do you capitalize that for? No.
Had to have a Steelers reference there, too.
This was the most misperceived athlete in modern Pittsburgh history. This guy, that everybody made him into a hero and everything, and he just wasn't those things in real life. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to uppercase Juju. Mark points out here that the Pirates' best chance tonight, of course, will be if Skeens can DH. He could hit. I mean, he could hit in college.
Yep.
And which gives him, I'm sure, a leg up on half of this lineup that they're going to send out there tonight. You know, it came to an end at LSU. He can also throw a football, not to get everybody really stoked.
Oh, gosh. Well, we saw what everybody did when Sidney Crosby threw the one pass at the Pat McAfee thing. Sidney Crosby needs to be the quarterback. You know,
you know what? There's nothing you wouldn't want Sid to do.
Oh, yeah. I'm not...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The most Sid thing ever. And Chris Letang said this the day after he threw that football into the hole. Chris Letang goes, "What did you think he was going to do? He's Sid."
Yeah.
You know, what did you same thing. Gino was the same way. Evgeny Malkin was like, I wasn't going to do it. Gino is, by the way, the biggest football fan out of all of them, but couldn't throw a football to save his Russian life. And the Skeens missed, for anybody who doesn't know, but Skeens actually, for anybody who also doesn't know, but Skeens throws a football as part of his pitching warm-up. The day he pitches, he could be over there right now. It's 5 p.m. throwing a football. He throws it in the outfield with a teammate. And it's just part of what he does to get his shoulder loose. He has an unusual set of exercises here. Let's take care of this business here. See what we got here. Matthew came in with 5 gifts. I mentioned Zach coming in with a contribution here. The crazy Pollock says, Gabe Davis or Kyle Pitts, if both are available. I'm okay with Gabe Davis. He's going to be in for a visit tomorrow. I'm fine with Gabe Davis. I believe that he had a down year for reasons that were kind of out of his control in Jacksonville last year. I remember the Gabe Davis. Okay.
That game in 2022.
Yes. Okay,
we talk about players who had impacts against the Steelers.
They love that stuff, though.
Yeah, they do love that stuff. And I don't think anybody, Kenneth Gainwell had a really good game against the Steelers last year, but that does not compare to 3 catches for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That was his Kenny Gainwell game, huh?
Gosh.
Or wait, what was the dude in Miami? Jay Ajayi. Not that he ran over a lot of people that year, but what he did to the Steelers was just criminal. It was down there. It was a rain game in Miami. I remember covering it. Dale says, other than the quarterback situation, biggest concern with the team, this is the quarterback situation.
Yeah, there's not really much else to be concerned about.
Yeah. What are we going to say? Slot corners. Charles says 10 gifts. He sends 10 gifts in. That's appreciated. We already thanked Taylor's dad for coming in and dropping $12 to just make fun of Tommy Pham. We see right through you. Stella Fierce comes in with 10 gifts. Levi Smith with 20. Levi's been with us for now, by the way, for 2 years and change. All of that's appreciated. All of your support is appreciated. You're the reason that we continue, to add programming, to add shows, to add this type of interaction and everything that we do. And Chris and I will be back at the football complex tomorrow, and we'll have more of this sort of thing to share with you tomorrow. Afterward. Bye.